Good morning and welcome to Love Every Moment, coming to you today from Juneau, Alaska. Today's verse is 1 Peter 3:15. But sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence. Now it starts with but, which is a negation of the previous verse, and I have the link up there, which talked about do not fear their intimidation or do not be troubled, but sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts. Now, what would cause us to be intimidated or troubled? The fact that the world thinks that they can stop us from loving God. And verse 13 says, who is there to harm us? In other words, who is there to possibly get in the way of us loving God and Him loving us? Absolutely nothing. Not even the devil himself can stop us, okay? So with that in mind, we don't fear their intimidation or be troubled by it. Yes, they can intimidate us. Yes, they can harm us. Yes, they can take away things from us. They could take away our freedom, our money, our very lives, but they cannot harm our relationship with God. That they can't touch, and that's the glorious thing. And with that in mind, that's why we should sanctify Christ as Lord in our hearts. Now you hear this word sanctify, and it's kind of ethereal. We say it, but we don't have a real nuts and bolts idea of it. But it's super important because remember, in Matthew 7, there's going to be so-called Christians who say, Lord, Lord, didn't we do all of these Christian things in your name? You know, we tithe, we read the Bible, we prayed, we come to church, we give a dish to the church potluck, all of these Christian things. In fact, in Matthew 7, it talks about hardcore Christianity things. We did miracles. We cast out demons. And yet, Jesus says to them, I never knew you. We were never in a relationship, Jesus is going to say. And that's why we need to sanctify Christ as Lord in our hearts. Now, if you look up the word sanctify, it's going to say in a Bible lexicon, basically to purify and set aside. Again, great, but let's put nuts and bolts in that. How do we do this? First of all, we basically can't. I can't purify myself, okay? I don't have the means to. I'm just a human being. But I can allow Christ to, and that's how I sanctify Christ in my heart as Lord. That's the key. Lord means He's the boss. He calls the shots. In my metaphor I like to use, He's in the driver's seat. I love Him more than anyone else or anything else, so He could have anything in my life. And if He wants to have my money, He could have it. If He wants to have my political aspirations, He could have it. If He wants to have my hobbies, my dreams, my marital status, my love life, anything about me, He can have, especially if it gets in the way. That's how I can purify and sanctify Christ as Lord in my heart. He has to have control of everything 100% in my life, and He will probably test that by taking some things away. Once we're there, then it says, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you. Now, some people read this and they think, oh, good, now I'm going to have arguments so I can out-argue my enemies and prove that God exists or prove that Noah's Ark is real or something like that. That's not the idea. It's to tell about what God has done in my life. Have you ever heard of the 3-minute testimony? It's a great idea. Basically, you spend about a minute saying, this is what my life was like before Christ, then another minute, this is how I came to Christ, and another minute, this is how God has changed my life and where I am now. It's a great idea that we could be ready to tell people about God's love and how it has changed us. And with that, maybe they'll want to do too and not intimidate us much anymore, right? So let's choose to love every moment, because then we're going to love every moment. I'm your average Dredge, and I hope you have a great week.